Welcome everyone. Today we are going to be discussing rate strategy 101 and planning a successful new year. So, as we are getting ready to close out 2025 and move into the 2026 season, and obviously the 2027 season that we're all going to be, preparing for as the year goes on. This is going to be a way for you to, take your property and expand it a little bit on all the capabilities that Staylist can provide for you. So today's topics are going to be why your rate structure matters. We're dive into, we always talk about the why of the topic that we're talking about today. And so, we're going to talk about and deep dive on all the ways that you can really maximize all of your revenue with the tools that you have on your property. So whether that's daily, weekly, monthly rates, special pricing for events or holidays, the way to use dynamic pricing correctly, events through Staylist, and how to have those minimums, whether it's a week minimum or a day minimum. And then we'll close out with rate strategy best practices. So we're going to start out the webinar with a poll. So Bree, if you wouldn't mind popping that on the screen and we can ask our guest how they use their rates. So do you currently have all of your 2026 rates entered into Staylist? So yes, fully loaded in, partially not yet, or I didn't realize that I needed them. So we'll give everybody just a second to answer. Fantastic. And so the thing is whenever we look at our rates, right, we want to, and we'll talk about that a little bit in just a minute, but we want to make sure that our rates are ready and set to go. So we have some that are fully loaded and then some that are partially loaded. So these are going to be best practices of how you're going to, incorporate these into your daily and how you can also pull the reports that we provide you in Staylist to optimize your revenue management skills. And so now we're going to talk about why rate structure matters. So every rate that you enter or our partiallys forget to enter are going to directly affect your bookings. So we know that 30 to 50% of leisure travelers book usually months in advance. So, you're going to have those on the whim trips, those ones that, are quick to book, last minute travelers, but your daily, monthly, and weekly pricing strategies are all going to influence how people book. So no matter if they're booking for, a short hotel stay or a long hotel stay, whether it's a vacation rental, for a vacation destination, or whether it's within your RV space, on a nightly rate, or maybe they're your seasonal long terms that stay with you for months on end. They're going to be all different ways to have pricing strategies to be able to optimize your revenue, depending on what your occupancy is at those times. And so the ADR report that Staylist has is going to be your best friend. Taking that, pulling into your categories, looking at your pace and pickup report, saying, hey, where am I at? Where is this, one specific category lying and how much money is it bringing me in? Maybe I need to adjust some prices based off of what my average daily rate is compared to on another type of category that might see more influx of bookings. So these are going to be all different ways that you're going to be able to utilize and optimize, all the money that you're potentially leaving on the table. Dynamic pricing, the demand for that is that no single rate works year round. So whether you have your daily, monthly, or weekly rates, dynamic pricing is going to take into consideration what your occupancy is and really move the needle on how much extra money that we can take in from these nightly stays. So missing future rates equals missed bookings. So if you don't have your rates in for, the 2026 calendar year, those are things that you really need to get in and push now. And maybe you're still, on the fence of, well, what should I charge or what should I not charge? And that's when you really need to pull in those reports and say, okay, now I'm going to take a step back and see what I can and what I can't push to be able to, take in all those nights and all of that revenue. Because a guest who can't see your prices, they're going to move on. They're probably on a quote screen, right, looking to see how much this property costs compared to this property, and then they're going to make their judgment that way. Or, maybe they're trying to plan in the future and you guys don't have rates available. And so it's not an easy click of a button online, and then they have to sit and wait on the phone. So these are all ways that we don't want to make sure that, we're missing these guests because we're not providing them with the necessary tools. Because your rates, they're your financial strategy, right? They're what builds your bottom line. And then while they're on property, then your ancillary revenue comes into place. So we'll pop in another poll. So Bree, I'll have you do that one real quick. And this one says, how far out do you normally release your dates? Or excuse me, your rates. Is it 12 months plus? Do you plan for 2 years out? Do you do 6 to 9, or excuse me, 6 to 12 months, where you're looking at, maybe you put them in every July or October for the following year? Or when guests start asking, maybe you don't really have a set way of how you do it. So, you kind of, like teeter totter on this, well, when people start inquiring about rates, that's when I start putting them in. Because if we have no set process, then we're going to have no money coming in. So we'll let you guys vote and then we'll see what you say. 6 to 12 months out. That's about average. So, being able to take in your pricing strategy and look at where your financials are for this current year, and maybe you're looking at your pace and pickup report saying, okay, well, this time in May, I see a bigger influx in rates, so I'm going to have them in a little bit earlier. You can really gauge on using these tools that you have to, put in your rates or to wait a little bit. So every business is different, every operator is different. So really being able to, tackle that ahead of time and making sure that you're providing those, so they can have those online bookings. And so your call volume is lower on the phone is going to be a great way to go. So now we'll dive into daily, weekly, and monthly rates. So we know that our daily rate is going to be our baseline price, right? It's the foundation of everything that our property is built on. We know that our transient guests are going to be the ones that we are really making our profit on, right? If we're a long-term park, then those are going to be our monthlies, but our transient guests are the ones that come and go, the ones that, we flip the room, we flip the site, and then that rental, maybe you have to adjust um, what your cleaning fee is based off of your long-term versus, your daily. These are all going to be ways that you adjust with demand, you adjust with season, and then you adjust with market conditions. So you really have to take into consideration what your peak season is versus what your shoulder season is, and then, carry your baseline price throughout the entire year. You don't want your summer rate, if that's your peak season, to be the same amount of money that you charge at night for your off shoulder seasons, right? Because that just doesn't make sense. Your occupancy is lower, you're going to have a lower rate. Your occupancy is higher, we're going to charge more. These are all going to be ways that, we want to deep dive and really change the way that our daily rates work compared to our weeklies. And so now we'll move on to weeklies. So we encourage longer stays, right? Because we're offering a cheaper price. We reduce the turnover costs because they have to stay 7 days. And we're stabilizing our occupancy. Now, from a past operator myself, when I think of a weekly rate, and I know that this is a conversation that I've had with a lot of different clients of should you use weekly rates or should you not use weekly rates? And from my experience, the best way to use a weekly rate is not in your peak season. And the reason being is because if you have a daily rate and they want to stay 7 days, they're going to pay that transient baseline price for your daily rate for 7 days straight. Your weekly rates need to come in into your off seasons so that you can, find the people who are taking in the extra value that you offer them in these off season compared to your peak season. They're great for snowbirds. Like it says, it's great for family trips because, they're planning on to not come during these actual busy times in the season. So you're giving them an incentive to come in your off season, come in your slower season, and offering them that little bit of a rate without running a discount. So trying to, figure out ways to optimize your business. And maybe that's not how your business works. Maybe your business runs on weekly rates, and that's completely fine too. You just have to be able to gauge and control, right? If you're anywhere between 70 to 90 to 100% occupied and you're offering a weekly rate, you probably either need to up your weekly rate or maybe take it out, provide them with that daily rate because your occupancy is probably going to remain the same regardless. So just really being able to gauge, what pricing strategies are going to work best for your park or your property are really going to drive your revenue. And then you have monthly rates, right? That drives seasonal and long-term revenue. So whether you are an extended stay property, whether it's for you have them for your vacation rentals or just your RV sites alone, um, these are going to be able to fill inventory and have predictable income for your bottom line, right? These are going to be ways that in your off season that you're going to be able to say, okay, how much money can I predict that I'm going to bring in for this month? Because I know that I'm going to have, 30 rooms or sites that are occupied with these long-term stays. You know that you're going to have X amount of income coming in due to having all of those monthly rates. And it's going to, reduce turnover. You're not going to have people who are going to check in, check out in a couple of days. Aren't going to have as many cleanings, or, maybe your staff load is a little slower because of how your monthlies are in your off season. So you can really gauge and control, what your revenue looks like, what your books look like, because you can have a really strong gauge of what your monthly rates will be bringing in. And then lastly, here it says longer stays equal more predictable occupancy and more revenue stability, which, with our dailies, we know that it's going to bring in more financial benefit, but our monthlies are what's going to be driving our revenue to stay consistent and to obviously peak our revenue up by the end of the month and at the end of the year, which we're coming up to. So now I'm going to pass this over to Chase, and I'm going to have him show you how to put in rates. Sometimes we always need that little reminder for daily, weekly, and monthlies in Staylist.
Alrighty, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Hope everyone's doing good today. Alrighty, perfect. So starting out, where we're going to locate our rates is by going cogwheel, reservations, and then rate codes. So here's my full list: RV site premium pull through, back ends, cabins. And what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to this green dollar sign. So when we click on this, these are my daily rates. And we
Hey,
can see,
Bree, sorry to interrupt you. Can you spotlight Chase's screen? They can't
Yeah.
see it.
Sorry. I
No, you're
forgot
fine.
to spotlight this one.
Chase, would you mind just starting over?
yeah, definitely. Let me
Okay.
know when you guys are ready.
Yep, you're
Sorry,
good.
Chase. That was my fault.
No worries,
I
no
told you
worries,
I'm still rusty.
no worries. Well, we're gonna go cogwheel, reservations, and rate codes. And here's those premium pull throughs. We have a cabin, our back ends, our standard pull through. But we want to go to this green dollar sign. And when we click on that, what we'll see is first our daily rate.
Hey,
So,
Chase.
yep.
And we're still seeing Courtney's screen. There we go.
All right, we see it now. Do we still see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, as we all know, cogwheel, reservations, and then rate codes. Here's those that I've been talking about. We have the premium pull through, our cabins, our back ends, so on and so forth. And then this green dollar sign. So when we click on that, it shows our daily rate. So in December, it looks like $100 a night. January, $85 a night. And if we want to update this, we can do it on a per box or per day basis. Or if we want to update the whole month of December, just click copy, maybe change that to 125, click OK, and now 125 per night. When we click on the weekly side of things, instead of putting in what you charge per night, this is not $400 per night, this is $400 per week. So you would put what you charge per week in each individual box. And that's going to be the same structure for the monthly as well. So this account looks like they charge $1,000 per month. Just like before, you can change these boxes on a per box basis, or just click the copy. Now, my favorite method of adding in daily rates, that's going to be using the mass update tool. So same spot, cogwheel, reservations, rate codes, but we're going to click on mass update. And this one is so beneficial because you can do such a longer amount of stay or a larger date range. So if we wanted to do, maybe January 1 to May 1st, for example, for every day of the week or just our weekdays. We could do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, add in Sunday. You can choose just one rate code or multiple. So let's say we're just doing our premium pull-throughs. You could do a percentage increase, you could do a flat increase, or a new flat rate. So if you're putting your rates in for next year, $55 a night, this is what it would apply on these Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and these date ranges. Now, where it gets even more powerful is go back to mass update. And let's say we wanted to work on 4th of July. So we'll put our start date of July 2nd, and we can put our end date of maybe the 6th. So then we take Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then what we can do is we can highlight all of our RV sites, for example. And we can say during this time, it being 4th of July, I'm going to increase my daily rates by 10% or maybe 5%. Or you could do a flat increase and say during these dates, I'm going to increase my rates by $5. So that way you don't have to go in, mess with individual boxes. You can just knock out all of your holidays within about 5 to 10 minutes. So that's editing and checking your rates. And with that, I will pass it back to you guys. And you are muted, Courtney.
Thank you, Chase. Now that's going to bring us back to why weekends, seasons, and events need special pricing. So, he got to show you a little bit of how to put in a weekend rate to be able to obviously define and make more money during these, really high occupancy, high yielding weekends, right? Or even holidays, because we know that demand isn't flat, right? We know that it moves depending on whatever, is going on within your city or your town. Weekends often book first. So we know that they should be priced higher. So being able to take in this mass update and say, hey, on every weekend in the summer, right, from May, or let's just say from Labor Day to Memorial Day, we want to be able to, take it, control it, shift it to say from 5 to 10% or 5 to 15% on weekends, because we know that we're going to have higher travelers then. Having these holidays and local events are also going to drive your premium rates. So you know that if you have Jeep Week and they come in, or you have a concert in town, the demand for these weekends are going to be higher. So maybe you have, a higher yielding rate for those weekends to be able to drive, extra revenue that's already coming to your town or your city and your property ultimately, and being able to define all of these rules and your dynamic pricing as well. So we'll talk a little bit about events, which we'll talk about in a second, and then dynamic pricing as well. So base rate is what Chase just showed you, right? Looking at your minimum nights, what are your rules, and then putting those into looking at the calendar with all of your rates for your daily, weekly, and monthlies. But then you can chop it up and say, okay, I have one night minimum stays, but that's not going to make me money if I have a full-blown, high yielding occupancy weekend. So we're going to put in rules, right? We're going to say, hey, it's a minimum of 2 nights that you have to stay on property. Or maybe if you have a vacation rental and you don't want to have to, turn that vacation rental over so quickly, and then it's a 3 night minimum stay or a 7 night minimum stay. These are all different ways that you can make sure that you're not having these gap nights within your reservations, so that you're not missing out and leaving that money on the table. So Saturday patterns for premium weeks, they are, a part of the system that says, hey, all of these are going to be flipped on this Saturday. All of these have to be cleaned. And then maybe if they want to book lesser nights, maybe you charge them more of a premium, right? You charge them more money because they want to stay for 4 nights. Maybe they have a higher cleaning fee because they only want to stay 4 nights. These are all different ways within your property that you can really maximize on that revenue, because you're, shifting your rules around, for another guest to come stay on property. And so then that's going to tie us back into dynamic pricing, right? Dynamic pricing is going to be your competitive advantage. It's going to set you apart from other properties that are saying, hey, I'm just going to use this baseline price. And then because they're not taking into consideration that they're busy, that they're booked, because it's just a standard in hospitality. I've mentioned before how many times you get concert tickets and you go look up hotels and you say, okay, well, I'm going to stay, at this one hotel for the concert in April. Well, then you get sidetracked, you have other things come up, and then all of a sudden it's February and you're looking at the same hotel, and then all of a sudden it's $200 more a night. And you're like, oh, I should have booked it back in December, right? That's because dynamic pricing is kicking in. Other people have already booked. But you're not going to not go to the concert. So what are you going to do as a guest? You're going to pay that 200 extra dollars because every other place, is also pushing dynamic pricing. They're also busy. And then, like I said, it's a standard in hospitality. You know what to expect whenever you have high event weekends because the demand is high. So you need to follow that demand shift as well. Weekends behave differently than weekends. We've talked about this several times already, but maybe you have, a Monday, Tuesday that is going to have a lower price. And so to entice people to come in at the beginning of the week, whereas your weekend stays are going to be a little bit more money. The holidays are going to be the same thing. Whenever you take and you look at, school calendars or if your chamber has event calendars and you're saying, okay, well, all of these things are going to be happening during this time period, go back and adjust your rates. Look at your holidays. Last year, Easter might have been in March. This year might be in April. So you know that March isn't going to bring you as much money as it brought in last year because now you have Easter in April. So taking these holidays and changing the before rates and the after rates for these holidays are really going to be able to push your revenue as well because peak season doesn't equal shoulder season. Your peak season rate should be your higher rates that are going to draw people in because of the fact that they want to vacation, right? The kids are out of school. It's warm. Everybody wants to be outside. They want to go explore, but maybe, you're a ski resort, right? And then you also have that's your season, right? Maybe it's not the warm season. And so what might be peak season for you might not be peak season for another park or property, and you need to adjust and shift your rates that way. So being able to gauge on yourself and, your business of what is my peak, what is my shoulder, and then looking at your rates, looking at your dates and saying, okay, how can I make this better? Local events also spike demand. So we know that if there's big graduations that are coming in, that's going to be whatever the local college or university has, right? So if you're not staying on top of it and you're not doing your research and you're not making sure that you're putting in, all of these rates for the demand that's going to be coming around your property, then you're going to be losing money. So whenever you have a base rate, even if you have $50 of a base rate, and then whenever your occupancy starts ticking up, maybe it, goes up $3 or $5 or $10. So your occupancy is going to rise your demand for your rates. And that's something that you really cannot miss because, like I said, you're going to lose money and leave it on the table. Stagnant pricing is not going to work. You really need to be able to push it and find, where it is. If you see that your occupancy is slowing, look at your pace and pickup report. Maybe you're overpriced. Maybe it's a little bit too much. Maybe you have to, turn your dynamic pricing down. Don't touch your base rate because maybe it's your dynamic pricing that's, pushing the envelope a little bit too much. But you have full control over that and you can change that at any time. So keep your base rate the same, play around with a little bit of how much money you can push with dynamic pricing. And then maybe you go back to the drawing board next year, right? Saying, well, I got up to $130 a night. Maybe I can push it and let my base rate be, 130, and then I can push it to 150 and then see if your occupancy stays the same. If your occupancy stays the same and you have more people coming in and you're steadily staying at 70 to 90% occupancy, why not push your rates, right? Why not make sure that, hey, I'm already this booked. I'm still going to make this much money, but let's make it a little bit more. Those are all different ways that dynamic pricing can really help you push the envelope and build that bottom line. And then you can take it back, pull it back. And dynamic pricing can also work the other way. If your occupancy dips below a certain peak and you want your pricing to go lower, have that do that too. Because it's going to be a revenue optimization tool that you can use on your property at any time throughout the entire year. No matter, what category that you're in, or what your demand is. And then it brings you to events, right? So we look at dynamic pricing. We have base rate, right? We have dynamic pricing, which builds on there. And then we're going to have events in Staylist. Your events are going to be your night minimums. If you're looking at Labor Day and you know that come Labor Day, you're going to have your property completely full. Why are you going to have orphan nights? Why are you going to have, a one night when somebody could have a three night? So maybe you know that they're going to stay Friday, they're going to stay Saturday. The kids are off school on Monday. So maybe you make it a three-night minimum. Maybe you say you have to stay 3 days during this special weekend because it's going to, boost your revenue, going to boost your occupancy. Or maybe you say it's only a 2 night. So maybe they come in on a Saturday and leave on a Monday. But it's just a way that to play around and look and see what your past patterns are. What are your past booking patterns? How long have people stayed? Look at your data that you have in the system and say, okay, how can I do this and how can I make this better? Because that goes back to wasted weekends, right? If you have these one-offs on almost all of your premiums, maybe you say all of my premiums just are going to have minimums, and then all of my regular standards are just going to say, okay, those can be my one-offs. Those are also ways that you can help gauge and protect your revenue, as you grow and as you experiment when it comes to your pricing strategies. And then it's going to have broken weeks and lost revenue. So broken weeks are if you have one nights and then a 2 day gap and then one nights and a 2 day gap. You want to make sure that you're filling that space in, right? Really make sure that you're taking all of your what your customers want and what they need, but making it so it's beneficial to you. You have these minimum nights, take advantage of them, play around with it, look at your weekends, look at your holidays, and then look at your special occasions because they really can help you drive that as well. So now I'm going to pass it over to Chase, and he's going to show you how to add these minimums, these events into Staylist, along with showing you how to work dynamic pricing.
Perfect. I'll start sharing my screen and just let me know when you guys can see it.
Yep, we can see it.
All right, perfect. So let's do dynamic pricing first. So where that's located is Cogwheel, reservations, dynamic pricing. So in this particular account, we have RV site dynamic pricing. Same places everywhere in Staylist. If you want to add in a new one, you just go over to the plus. It'll ask you for a name, and then you click save. When you do that, you will get these options here. So first off, what categories do you want it to apply to? If you leave it blank, it's going to apply to your entire account. If you want to do just RV site, that's fine. Or you can do it by pull through or by backend, that's fine as well. Then down here, you can click plus on as many different lined items that you want for that dynamic pricing. So in this case, on this account, once their occupancy hits 10 to 29%, it's going to increase their rack rate by 5%. And then once occupancy hits 30 to 49, it's going to increase that rack rate by 10%. And then 50 to 100 by 15. This is not stacking, so it's not 5, 15, and then 30. It's 5 here, 10 on the next, and then 15 under those. Now, the next side of things are the dates in which they're active. If you want to put January 1, 2026 to December 31st, 2026, that's perfectly fine. Or if you want to put in 15 different ranges and those are all your holiday weekends, that's fine as well. You can use this however you would like to. But essentially, it's going to have the starting occupancy, the ending, and then what you want to increase from there. So we'll just save that. And then the other side of things, Cogwheel, reservations, and events. Same as before. If you want to add one in, just go to this plus. It'll ask you for the name. You click save. But let's open up this one. So this one's called 2-night minimum rule for cabins. So we can click 267. Right here, we can add in notes if we want people to know what they mean internally. Minimum night stay, make that 2, make it 3, 4, however much you would like. You can also do the opposite, a maximum night stay. Then you can specify, maybe we have a minimum, but it only applies to weekdays. Same thing for the weekends as well. So maybe they have to stay the full weekend. These next two, you wouldn't be using for this. This would actually block your availability, either in person or online. Where this comes into play, some of our northern parks, they'll close down between, let's say, December and February. So we would have dates in here, and it would block their availability. Next two aspects we have is the required check-in or checkout day. Maybe during certain periods, you only allow people to check in on Friday because that's the only day your staff is there, or XYZ. Then you have the deposit policy override. Maybe during these dates, you want everyone to pay 100% up full, or only $100. You name it, you can make that override. Then the next one, if you don't put anything, it'll default to all units, or you can say this is only going to apply to backend number 1, backend number 2, backend number 3. Or you could do it the category method. So just my cabins, just my RV sites. And then right up here under dates, here's where we would put in all of those dates that we would want these certain aspects to be enforced. And that is events. So I will pass it back to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Chase. All right. I will share my screen again. So here we go. This is going to be rate strategy and best practices. So I'm just going to list these. These are from talking to different properties, seeing what works, what doesn't, and then, ways that you might be able to take some of these and input them onto your property as well. So load 12 to 18 months of rates at all times. So making sure that, we're only a few weeks out from 2026. We want to make sure that we get these rates out between at least 6 months prior to, the January 1 of the following year. This is a really good time for you to take into consideration and what you want to do for 2027 and maybe start putting in those rates as you go. So maybe you're not looking at summer, maybe you're just doing January, February, March to bleed, your seasonals or your long terms into the new year. So you're not just sitting on deposits, but you're actually taking in that revenue from them as well. And then when they check in, it's going to accrue as they get there. You're going to use daily, weekly, and monthly combinations, making sure that you're really diving into your business and saying, okay, what is going to make me money? Does a weekly work for me? Do monthlies work for me? Do dailies work for me, right? The way that you run your business is going to be different than your neighbor or someone else down the road. So just being able to really gauge that as well. Take advantage of ADR reports that can help you control your pricing. ADR reports, pace and pickup, these are all going to be your best friends when it comes to pricing strategy and what works for your property. Create weekend and holiday premiums. Maybe you only start off small with, a certain amount of categories and you push your premiums. Maybe for an RV space, you have only concrete pads. Maybe you want to push those rates a little bit and keep your standard, basic rates the same. See what you can push the envelope with. Use the events to enforce minimum night stays and dynamic pricing instead of manual edits. You can really push the envelope with dynamic pricing. And I know it scares a lot of people, but being able to add that into your daily and saying, hey, this is what I achieved in 2026. Let's see what I can do for 2027. It's just going to be one of the best ways to make your property bigger and better. Review seasonal performance monthly. So if you're looking and you're saying, okay, well, I'm this cheap right now. Let's push a little bit more for your seasonal performance and say, okay, well, I might be a little too cheap for seasonals. And then you up that rate a little bit as well. Keep your calendar rate clean and consistent. Chase showed you a way to do a mass update. Maybe instead of having this day's $27, this day's $32, it goes back to $27. Keep it clean and let dynamic pricing be the one who moves that needle for your whatever your rate is. And then protect premium dates with booking patterns. The best way for you guys to do that is to really do a deep dive and revenue management dive on your property and say, what can I do to make it better based off of you and your information, not based off of what is right beside your neighbor, because how they run their business might be different than yours. It's a good way to do price comparison, though, because we obviously need price comparisons to be able to keep the market alive and to be able to be competitive in the market. But you really need to obviously take a step back and say, okay, how can I make this better for myself? So those are going to be our rate strategy best practices. Usually we talk about marketing strategies, but today we're talking about rates. So in closing, thank you guys so much for coming today. Just keep in mind, a strong rate strategy is the foundation of predictable revenue. Daily, weekly, monthly rates attract the right types of guests. Dynamic pricing keeps you competitive. Events protect your highest valued dates, and ensuring that future rates, are in show that your booking pipeline never stops. And now we will open the floor to some Q&A. Yes,
Yes,
Sean.
Sean? Sorry, Courtney.
No, you're fine.
Sorry, I have quite a few questions regarding some of this.
Yeah.
So mass updates. My confusion on that is once you do a mass update, how long do you have before you can change those exact same dates again, or is it almost you can go right back in if you messed up?
You can go right back in if you messed up.
Okay, so it's not like because I know it says on there once you set them, they're set, but I mean, if I messed up, you can go right back in and redo them.
Yep.
Correct.
It's the same thing, Sean. If you were even to, copy down on your daily, for that mass update, you can go in and change that as well. So
Okay.
the next minute or the next day, whatever you want.
Okay. And then on rate codes on the weekly and monthly, I'm a little confused to why every day is on every month for those rate codes. And I guess my question is how is that determined? I mean, if somebody is booking from a Wednesday to a Wednesday, but yet your Saturday and Sunday has a different weekly rate, I mean, that's a little confusing. So how is that working? Why do you have to put a weekly rate on every day of the month?
Because for different weeks in the month, some people might charge a different price depending on if it's the first week, the second week, or third week of the month. So if they overlap that, then what the breakdown would be of, let's say, $500 per week or 1,000, it would, on those that's overlapping those particular dates that are set at the rate level, it would factor that into what they would pay on that particular week. Because some parks, they have a different weekly rate depending on if it's the first week of the month, second, third, fourth. There's few that do that, but there's some that do.
Okay. But if I have a different weekly rate set on a Saturday versus on a Monday, but yet somebody books from a Saturday to Saturday, how is the system calculating that?
The higher priced day would show a little bit more whenever you click, if they're booked for 7 nights and you have their reservation open and you click the breakdown of nights and it shows you down those particular, it would have a higher date counting into that, but they would be getting the weekly rate, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes sense. And then this next question on that might go to Courtney because she has some extensive knowledge in this, but um, we've done on our weekly, we've done buy 7 nights, get 1 night free. Do you suggest that, or do you suggest building in a discount based on a weekly rate and taking that buy 7, get 1 night free away?
So it just depends on how you want to do it, Sean. I mean, if you did it as a discount promo, right, you would be able to, from a marketing standpoint, you would be able to look and say, how much money am I losing by running this promo? Or, what you could say is, all right, well, they're staying, for simple math, right? If it's $50 a night and then their last night is free, then maybe you just add, or subtract, however you want to do it, and add that to your nightly, right? So then it shows that, you're receiving a discount, but that night isn't technically free. It's just built into your weekly rate. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So it just depends on how you want to track it. A lot of people do the, get an extra night free. If you wanted, I would recommend tracking it as a discount code so you can see, from a marketing standpoint if it's working or if it's not working. Because if not, then it's just bleeding into your weekly stay.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
And then Chase, I know Chase has worked with me on this before and we've had issues with it. And Courtney, you mentioned this about dynamic pricing, that it will work both ways. However, when I've tried to set that up in the past where it goes negative or it goes positive, there is definitely a conflict in the system that Chase and I have worked on in the past. So if you want to make your rates go down for some reason, does that have to be its own dynamic pricing setup? And then if you want to go forward and add money to it, that has to be separate as well?
I would say definitely don't mix minus and positive on the same one. Um, so if you want to do a minus, have them both separate. But I'll run some testing after this just to make sure everything runs smoothly. But definitely don't have them combined in one, because then it just could be contradicting itself from a code perspective. But I'm
Yeah,
gonna look
I don't know if you remember that, Chase, but I set it up as one, and there definitely
at.
was a conflict in there. It wasn't acting properly. It was almost taking everything down instead of working both ways.
Definitely don't combine them together, negative and gaining.
Okay. But however, if you set them up separately and they apply for the same dates that you've set them up, they should work or they will work.
I'm under the impression that they would work as long as they're separate, as long as they're
Okay.
separate. Which
Okay.
I'll confirm. I'll confirm.
Okay.
Awesome.
And then one last question. I don't mean to take up as many questions, but
You're fine.
regarding CPI, how often should you let that influence your rates far out? How often should you look at that, I guess?
You're saying for in what way? Like looking at your
Well,
rates from,
yeah, I mean, looking at consumer price index, should you look at that every 3 months, every 6 months to help that strategize your rates, or should it just be like a one time, once a year thing?
no, I mean, you should definitely keep that up. And come 2026, Staylist is going to provide you with some integrations and some price strategy help. So that will be on the horizon for you, Sean, where you can do that natively in the system. So whenever you look at your pricing strategy and you're comparing it market price competitively, where are you at? Where are other people at? And then how can you get onto par with that if you might be under. So that is coming. But that's you taking in revenue management skills and really, enhancing on those and then building upon those. So, when I used to operate, I would look at them from a monthly standpoint. And then if I knew that I was getting into the nitty gritty and really price comparing other properties, sometimes I would even do it weekly to see if I'm falling behind. Because if I'm way overbooked and they're not, or if I'm really underbooked and they are, then something's going wrong with my pricing, and so I need to go back to the table and drawing board on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate it. Sorry for taking up so much of the
No,
camp.
we love questions. These are great, and they probably helped everyone else listening. So we appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else? Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. And if we don't see you guys before 2026, we hope you have a great Christmas, a great holiday season, and a great New Year's. And feel free to reach out to us anytime for additional training or even talking about, operational advice if that's what you're looking for too. So thank you guys so much. Have a good day.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.
everyone.